GM. Welcome back to Noun O'Clock at the Noun Square. We're watching the end of the auction for Noun 689. This donut head noun that I definitely didn't misclick to mint yesterday. Played a little bit of Pallet Town.
Not gonna lie, that story doesn't really check out for me. I wasn't here, so I can't verify it. But when I look at this noun, I think that is the exact noun that Robot Fish Girl was like.
I'm not mad about it, but I actually did. If I was tabbed in, I would have clicked on it, but I actually was tabbed out when it showed up. Anyway, we've only got a minute and 30 seconds left on this auction. So if you haven't yet, one, retweet the room to enter into a chance to win 0.069 ETH. Two, make sure you're following along with the end of the auction with us on nomo.wtf so that you can play janky FOMO with us and settle the noun.
Sounds like a plan.
Noun day.
It is by the way, day, so we've got two nouns.
We don't need to explain how this all works to Ash Robin. He's been hanging with us for the better part of a week or more, so he knows exactly how the cookie crumbles. He knows exactly what we do here, so he's, I'm sure, already on nomo.wtf, ready to mint a new noun with us, right, Ash?
Yeah, I will say, ever since the past 2 or so weeks, I've been spending a lot of time just staring at not Nomo nouns, but the proposal site, and it's crazy to see there have been a lot of these recently. Not what you said, but yeah, I definitely want to see what's going to end up happening with the one that's going to be ending in 30 seconds.
21 seconds, 25.5 ETH. Right now, the top bid on this one looks like that's what it's going for, unless we get a last-minute bid, and we didn't.
We're not going to.
So Donut is going to 25.5, 425.5 ETH to 0x B6BA. Congratulations, sir. Owner of 5 nouns already. I wonder who that is. Already an owner of 5 nouns.
This is wild. And
Janky FOMO, what the hell is that?
Janky FOMO is when everybody on stage yells at you to mint the next noun.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to snipe. And unlike Robot Fish Girl, I will not accidentally mint the donut. I promise you that. That is my campaign speech. That is my stump. If you, if you choose me, see, Robot Fish Girl would have accidentally.
Pride hot dog.
Robot Fish Girl would have 100% accidentally minted this Pride hot dog, but I didn't. Because we gotta have some variety. We can't just have a Pride noun.
Gay donut son alone.
What we should do is every time we mint a donut, we should also mint a little donut hole, little noun to go along with it.
Oh yeah.
I stand by that. Little donut holes. By the way, if you're just joining us, make sure that you retweet that room, get people in here so they can remember that they want to come here, join us to mint the next noun of the day, mint the next Nomo of the day, and have an awesome chat after that with Ash Robin. So yeah, going to be a good one. But for now, that's a pretty good piano. That's a piano. I'm late, but I'm gonna try and grab it because a piano is pretty good.
That's pretty fantastic.
I don't know if I was quick enough. I don't know. I was.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh, you know what? The nounder noun is, I think, maybe the first instance of a drill. Is it?
Oh, is it a drill? This is not a drill.
I didn't even see it.
I keep forgetting.
I'm gonna check it right after we play Nomo. If you're on nomo.wtf, you should be seeing not as many nouns as we necessarily usually get, but still a fair amount. And you're going to pick your favorite, choose your character, and spam click that noun with all of your might. Half of them are eliminated every 10 seconds until we are left with just one, and that is going to be our Nomo noun of the day. This orca
there
is
some good ones today. There are some good ones. We've got a pretty handsome Japanese orca. We've got an amazing Ethereum. We have a literal UFO, a flying, floating UFO with no body. We have a Pride hot dog. So yeah, some good ones. Choose your character. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Let's go. Remember, there's no limit to how many times you can click for your favorite.
Also, make sure your wallet is connected or your click will not be counted.
Not saving the Pride hot dog, I have to say.
I saved the Pride hot dog. I had to. I'm going for this orca, though. It's too good not to.
Round 2 of 5. Let's
Oh
You know what?
God, my
Pineapple's
wrist.
pretty nice too. I'll save them just to be nice. You know what? Woody's gonna want this noun so bad. I mean, it's not often you get a floating UFO with no
Oh
body.
God,
Come on.
no.
It's an on-chain UFO. What more do you want from a Nomo? That's the real question. I did notice that RFG jumped ship and went back to the Pride hot dog.
Oh God, I'm
Busted.
gonna miss it.
The Pride hot
No.
dog could not
No,
keep
I
up
was
with
aiming for the orca, but I didn't get it.
Amazing
Final
Ethereum
round.
versus literal UFO. On-chain UFO. Who's gonna get it? Let's go. Final round. Fight.
Well, looks like I'm staring at it going for the UFO. I'm gonna try to keep it close and go for the names.
Oh my god.
Oh wow, that was really close.
I'm actually surprised by that. I thought UFO had it in the bag, and I might have even
I
let up
did
on my
too.
thinking a little bit there, and serves me right. And then the Ethereum maze came up from behind. But you know what? Really nice with all those greens and blues. Kind of a nice combo.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one.
Not gonna lie, it's an amazing Ethereum Nomo noun. For those of you not familiar with Nomo nouns, Nomo is a game that we developed in-house here at TNS so that we would always have something fun and engaging and a little bit crazy to play live on these spaces that we do every single day. How many days in a row have we done this space, RFG? I can't read.
317.
317 days in a row without missing a space. Not too shabby. If you'd like to support everything that we do here at TNS, doing these spaces every single day, including these, plus all of the different spaces that we host for different ecosystems, different sub-DAOs and different communities within the CC0 realm, as well as all the YouTube content, TikTok content, and everything else that we like to bring to the table. This is one simple way that you can support us by minting a Nomo noun for 0.069 ETH. In addition, for your own benefit, you get this beautiful NFT in your Ethereum wallet, rather, which is there until and if Ethereum ever dies, which heaven forbid it ever will, but you'll have it until then. And also, you'll get access to our Nomo zone in the TNS Discord, which is pretty dope. That's where Symbiotalk has his Symbiotalk channel. I get that wrong every single day. You think I'd get used to it. Symbiotalk. And in that channel, he talks about all the upcoming mints and all sort of interesting news from the NFT space. So that's a cool one to get access to that you can only see in our Discord if you have a Nomo in your wallet. And finally, you enter yourself into our daily Nomo draw every day just for fun. We draw one minter from yesterday, and we give them some NFTs. We give them an NFT from our Nomo vault. So those are all the reasons why you may want to mint a Nomo noun. Not least of all, the fact that it's 0.0069 ETH instead of 25 ETH was today's noun. So,
Yep,
a little bit more,
25 and a half.
slightly more affordable.
Marginally, ever so slightly.
Marginally affordable, yes. So that's all of our business for the day. We minted a beautiful piano, if I do say so myself. This looks like Dark Factory's musical brother who went to art school, who went to Juilliard.
Yeah. By the way, Symbiotek was right. The Nounder noun was the first ever drill head, and it's got blended noggles.
Ooh, I have to go and check.
So,
By the way, Joel just created an incredible name for the new noun. So it's piano.
Alkva, welcome to the space. Yeah, we've said that 3 times already.
I'm sorry, I know.
I'm just kidding.
I joined later.
Yes, it is indeed a piano, however you want to say it. It's a great noun. I if I do say so myself. But yes, this Nounder noun also.
Shame on me, man. I'm sorry. Oh my god, what a shame.
It's all good, Akbar. But yeah, this is a really great drill, and it's a shame Cardinal's not here with us today because he would really like this Cardinal accessory. It's a Cardinal drill, and with blended noggles, pretty nice. Well done, Nounders. If there was going to be a first drill, this is the first drill I would choose. I'm not going to say.
All right. I mean, you did.
I'm not going to say. Yeah, I did, I guess. But I'm not going to say I would have janky FOMO'd if this was the regular noun of the day. But it's a nice one. So
it's a nice one.
Awesome. All right. Well, so we've got a guest today, as every day, and I'm excited to chat with him. His name is Ash Robin. First question we obviously have to ask: first name Pokemon, second name Batman. Which one do you prefer?
Well, so first of all, I will be spending the next 5 minutes ordering a new mouse because my mouse is broken.
Oh yeah, that has happened. We do have a budget for that, so when new guests come on the show, we do buy them a new gaming mouse if it breaks during Nomo. It's part of our insurance policy.
I actually do have. I've gone through 3 gaming mice playing Nomo. Unironically.
Yeah, I was voting on the hot dog one, and all of a sudden it just stopped working, and I was just like, "What is this?" So now I have a limp mouse. So
that's hilarious.
So anyway,
there's also a possibility that if you have like a really, really fast mouse, sometimes you can get rate limited. Like you might get blocked from playing if you click too fast. It's supposed to only happen with scripts, but maybe if you're like superhuman with those fingers, maybe you got blocked. It's hard to say.
How many hours do you have in CS:GO? That might.
Yeah, important questions to ask. All right, so maybe we can start. Ash, would love to ask you to tell everybody here, if they haven't sort of heard your story, what's your Web3 journey? How did you get into crypto and eventually into the NFT space?
Yeah, so I guess I'll try to keep this very brief, but to begin, so I guess I've like ever since I graduated from college, like I was always into like making, just like creating content and that kind of thing. And so I started making content back in like 2018, and it was in relation to like gaming. Like I spent a lot of time playing Fortnite when it was brand new, but like right before that, back in 2017, I had found out about crypto, and where a lot of people had bought crypto. Like, I don't know how I got down the rabbit hole of mining, but this was around the time, as I'm sure like a lot of you guys would know, like in 2017, 2018, you couldn't buy graphics cards because everybody was like mining, and that was just like a huge thing. And so,
and this is why gamers hate crypto to this day. One of the reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And so I actually found out about crypto. And then I for some reason just love the idea of like mining. So I went and I grabbed 5 graphics cards, built a mining rig, and I was living in a place where electricity was like community, right? So I was just mining for free. The thing that sucked was that, like, and I'm sure like maybe not everybody knows this, but when you're running like 5 graphics cards in one room, it can get really hot. And so that was like the downfall.
Ash, I feel your pain. I have 10 Litecoin miners in my garage, but when I first got them, the plan for them was to put them in the basement, and that plan lasted about 5 hours because it literally roasted us alive inside. So plus they're super loud.
You could bake cookies in your basement just in the open air after that.
Well, so I knew they were going to be loud, and so I prepared in advance. I took like the back storage area, I added insulation and everything so it would be super sound, proof, and then I put them in there. But then I forgot that when you insulate for sound, you also insulate for heat, and so it became like a super sauna in there, and they all like basically shut themselves off in the first hour. So anyway, they moved out to the garage, and I'm pretty sure half my neighborhood thinks that I'm growing weed because there's never any snow on the roof of my garage in the wintertime. But hey, it's just mining. So
that's actually hilarious.
No, it's actually worse.
What's that, Ash?
Yeah. The cops pull up to your house and they're just like, yeah, so why do you not have any snow on your roof there, guy? And like
apparently they do look for that here in Canada. They do sort of scan hydro bills, and if they see high hydro bills, they'll scan roofs to see if they're if people are growing. And they're not supposed to.
I can't wait for somebody to show up at your door and ask if you're growing weed, and then you have to admit that you're not nearly that cool.
Yeah. No, just minting Litecoin and then changing it for Ethereum.
Yeah, so it's funny that you're like on the same vibe. One of my bigger regrets actually is that like I stopped like mining at a certain point, because like at the time, like Ethereum had dropped to like $200 or $300, and I was just like, all right, well, how much longer am I going to keep running this thing? And I was also traveling a bit at the time, so it's like, you kind of you kind of have to babysit it in a way. But long story short, yeah, like that's kind of how I got into it. But then, I started making content, as I mentioned, like in 2018, was gaming a lot. Got introduced to crypto again in 2020, and I started paying more attention to it when like Dogecoin had started to run, and then found out about NFTs, and then I just shifted.
Do you have any OG Dogecoin from when it like first came out?
No, but I did just so happen to buy Dogecoin like under a penny right before it mooned in like 2020, like right before it got like really big. And so I that was like my first like big hit on like a crypto, because I was working like my Web2 job at the time. And so I just like threw whatever I had into it, and it went to like 8 cents, and I was just like, oh my god, like this crypto stuff is crazy.
Easy game.
So yeah, it was amazing at the time, and I was using Robinhood. And then like
This is like,
luckily,
you know what, RFG, you said you were going to make me a shirt that said my first NFT was a pudgy penguin. I feel like you also have to make Ash Robin a shirt that says my first crypto hit was Doge on Robinhood, and we'll both wear it when we go to the conference.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Yeah, right.
Started from the bottom, now
I
we're
always,
here.
yeah, I always like to hear about how people like make their way in. But I was pretty lucky because like even though I had been streaming and like making content and gaming, there was somebody that I met through gaming that they were like actually shilling me an NFT in like mid 2021, and that was like my introduction to it. And then I kind of just like switched over to NFT related content, and I have like a pretty strong like Web2 background, so I like to work like, I've worked in like, marketing, digital advertising, management, like all that kind of stuff for a pretty major company. And so moving into this area, it's nice because, if you have the ability and also just like the mindset to put in good work in Web3, there's a lot of good opportunities. Just because, at least from what I can tell, like there, and we've seen this with a lot of projects, like, there's a good amount of projects that are mismanaged. And so like, being somebody who can help manage things in a proper way is definitely a good thing. So yeah, that's kind of like my background. And then I've just been making YouTube videos for a year and a half, and Spaces, Twitter videos, like that kind of thing ever since.
I think that's a good point about just sort of being around and being present and keeping your eyes open for opportunities. I spent the better part of today at the hospital with my little one, getting some tests. Everything was okay, but spent a lot of time sort of thinking about, how when we were being brought up, our parents and our schools and everything spent a lot of time telling us to do what we loved in our lives. Like make sure that what you do is your passion and blah blah blah. Or for some parents it was like go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, something that's very safe. But nobody really spends the time to like teach their kids to be on the lookout for opportunities. And I think that's one thing I definitely want to do with my little one is like bring him up to keep eyes peeled for where paradigms are shifting and things are changing, and where you can kind of have an exciting career, an exciting hobby or whatever, just because where those changes are happening, that's where the excitement is, and that's where the opportunity tends to lie. Bit of a shower thought there, but just made me think of it from what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you entirely. Like, I graduated with a marketing degree, and you all the time you hear about people, they say like, oh, I want to be in business. And I remember hearing that so much, and now it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? Does that mean that you want to work like in a business setting, or do you want to like run your own business? And what's interesting is that like for me, when I found out about NFTs, like I immediately thought, I was like, okay, like this is emerging tech. My father was really early into the cellular business,
Yeah.
and so that was like his thing. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of like his journey, where when he graduated, the new upcoming technology was like cellular phones, and so that was the industry that he got in, and he got into it in like the 80s, back before it was like really big,
So he had one of
before
those.
everybody.
He had one of those Night at the Roxbury phones.
Yeah, yes, yeah, he had like all of them. I mean, that's like what he did. He was like literally one of the pioneers for like cellular, like those brick phones.
Or
And
the
it
car
reminds me
phones that came before them. For those who aren't old enough to remember it, I never used one, but like my parents' generation had these like car phones. If you remember them, they're like cell phones that were so big they had to be plugged into your into your car basically to work.
Yeah, my dad
Yeah.
had one of those.
And even
Yep,
that
I
seemed like magic at the time, I'm sure, to anyone who had never used a non plugged in phone to a wall in a house.
yeah, totally different times, but it reminds me a lot of this, to where I was like, okay, like this feels to me, luckily, to be that same kind of situation where like nobody that went to school like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago said like, oh, I want to be in like Web3. I mean, maybe there are some people, like very few, because we know like how big it's grown since then, but yeah, this is like one of those things that kind of just like popped up, and
Even
keep going.
people going to school to become, to become engineers or whatnot. Like, people are telling them to learn software coding, but no one's encouraging them to learn Solidity, for example. Like, it's just people who just miss the boat a lot of times on a lot of this stuff in my experience. Or I remember when we were in school, they made us do this stupid computer program that like asked us all of our interests. Is like a personality test essentially, and at the end it spits out what career you should do, and it's like, oh, you like to write, so you should be a journalist instead of. And this is speaking from personal experience. That's what it told me. I should be a journalist, without telling you that the entire career of journalism isn't going to exist. By the time you graduate from college, right? So, it's a problem.
Yeah, the world is definitely moving into an interesting place now with AI and everything that's going on with that. I mean, we could talk about that for days as well, but yeah, like I echo the sentiment for sure about like, kind of like an emerging tech comes up, and then next thing you know, like you find yourself in an area that you wouldn't have necessarily found yourself in it otherwise, right? Unless you just kind of stumbled into it and then just like had the wherewithal to say like, okay, this is something that could be big, and it's just not very traditional.
For sure. One of the projects that I first saw you involved in, and I'm sure if some of the others on the stage as well, was the Crypto Bats project. I believe you were one of the lead consultants on that project when it launched last year. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to work with Ozzy and that team, and how you got involved with that?
Yeah, so oddly enough, when that was like right around the time that I had gone full time in Web3, and I had quit my Web2 job. So for those who may not know, Crypto Bats by Ozzy Osbourne, that was a project that launched in January of 2022, and I only had like 20 25 3,000 followers on Twitter. Like I was brand new to posting on Web3, and oddly enough, they had approached me because they saw like some content that I was making on YouTube, and I was a collab manager, like that role that now is like all over the place. That was like really my role at the time, and so I got to, and that was like one of the luckiest things ever. Like I will say, it's kind of like being right place, right time. But it's why making content, I feel like, is important, because like opportunities do arise from it when you put yourself out there, and at least like from what I can tell, just by putting like a face to the voice, because I realize that there's a lot of people that are undoxed, and I think that in a way there are like, if you're doxed, or if you make content and that kind of thing, and people can hear your voice, and you explain things like in a certain way, it really gives that personal touch. And I think that's like a lot of like one of the reasons why they had reached out. And so yeah, that was an amazing experience. Unlike anything else, because obviously that was like peak bull run. Ozzy Osbourne's name was attached to it, so as much as I feel like I did a good job on it, like I'm not going to sit here and say that the market conditions weren't amazing, and that Ozzy Osbourne didn't also, who's like a legendary like Hall of Fame like rock and roll artist. I mean, like give me a break. Like he carried that, and the content that that they put together that Ozzy was a part of for that was also amazing. Like they did a really good job with that. And yeah, so that was just pretty much my role. And, you know, we helped push that in a good direction, but it is wild to see like where things have gone since then, because that felt like the euphoria stage. And now obviously like things are just they're, you know, they're way worse. But that was absolutely the opportunity of a lifetime. That was like the job that I enjoyed more than anything else. I didn't necessarily get to talk to Ozzy, but I did get to talk to Sharon, which was pretty cool. Because you know, you watch them on TV and like you hear about their story and everything. So yeah, absolutely. Like I said, life changing. Was super humbled to be a part of that. And I will say it kind of sucks because we know how this space is, but I come from a background also of just collecting like Pokemon cards and stuff. And like I feel like we've gotten into the, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Toady, but like, you know, we've gotten into this thing where nowadays, like, you know, if somebody drops like an NFT, it's not necessarily like considered a collectible to a lot of people. Like, you know, they want some utility, or like, you know, we hear all about that. But, you know, if you're somebody who really likes Ozzy, then like that could be like a good collectible. And like, I'm not going to get too into this, but like, you know, Trump, like, you know, he released his trading cards, and, you know, for whoever likes him, like, you know, they can go out and they can collect those, or anything else. But I just feel like there's been like a bad rap around like the way that the community has addressed just like anybody that has like a name that has dropped
If these
a
NFTs aren't
project.
collectibles, man, my net worth is going to be hurting.
Yeah. So what do you think about like all that?
No, I think that you're right. Like well, actually, so on the topic of utility, it's interesting because I think there was already like a utility meta, quote unquote, like back in 2021. It was like a big meme. And so I think the more things change, the more they stay the same. People always ape into something, and then when it, on speculation often, and then when it doesn't do what they wanted it to do, then they sort of invent these expectations of utility, or, you know, you promised me this or you promised me that. And oftentimes I think it's just people not really taking adult responsibility for their own investments, like maybe 8 or 9 times out of 10. So I think most of the time, if you're buying an NFT, you should probably just consider it as buying art or supporting an artist that you love. Most of the time, that utility isn't going to be much, with the possible exception of DAO tokens, where you can obviously use them for governance. So they do have that pretty important utility, quote unquote. But I mean,
Yeah,
like most of the NFTs that I really love that I won't sell are just, I just really appreciate the art. I appreciate the vibe. They're not like long-term investments necessarily. They're just like you said, collectibles. Like my cryptodes, those are Gremlin collectibles to me. You know, I'm not getting rid of them.
yeah. Like so like I'm pretty big, like I said, into like Pokemon. And the thing is that like they drop new sets like every 3 months with new art, new rarities, and people still buy them like crazy. People love them.
Right.
And and that's like my thing is, it's like, okay, like how many Charizards have they released in like the past, like, you know, 10 sets? Like a lot of them. And people don't get all bent out of shape like they do around here, where, you know, if there's like something that gets released, like people just don't treat it as art. Now
Yeah.
I have collected a good amount of art, like NFT art, from my favorite artist is Terrell Jones, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in New York. But yeah, like there, you mentioned like Gremlin, like there's a ton of like really great artists. And unfortunately, like the bubble that we experienced, it just propped so much of this up, and there was so much money running around. And I think like one of the big things, and I'm sure you remember this, is like back in 2021 and 2022, there were a ton of people but not a lot of projects. And I think it was because like there was somewhat of a barrier to launching projects. Like it was hard to find good devs.
Right.
People didn't know, like, you know, how to launch stuff. And now, like, we have a lot less people, and the skills have improved to where there are a lot of devs. Like, if you
Now
want to get
people
in
are
touch,
just sending blindly, sending ETH to an ETH address on a Twitter bio. Yeah,
yeah,
we are not the same. No, but I think you're right.
Let's do it, man. Let's just dip into shitcoins. It's shitcoin season, right? Ash, please create one for us, man.
Oh God.
You're a great influencer. You can pop our bags.
Akva just looking for his next shitcoin.
Just kidding, man. I mean, I didn't talk much yet, but I like Ash work on Twitter. Just want to shout out. I've been following his shit posting, I mean, videos for a while, and I really enjoy them. I mean, I think you bring like some great energy to the space, and you're able to be ironical and fun at the same time. I think it's important for us to be able to have fun. That's what crypto is about, at least for me. Not just money, but also having a great time. And thank you for everything you do, man.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I love making that content for sure. And I sometimes will get messages and people will say like, oh, like, you made my day. And like, ultimately we see a lot of times like on Twitter, like, there's a lot of people that like, we've gone into this thing where everyone's like, oh, support my content, this, blah, blah, blah. And there isn't like a ton of like really good content out there. And I honestly try to put something out to where I'm just like, if I put this out, is it going to be relatable? Are people going to like it? And that's kind of it. Like, I love making it. So for you to say that, it definitely means a lot, because that's like my goal with it. And and yeah, like I guess like I want to continue to put stuff out that I'm happy about, that also just makes people smile.
As far as NFTs go, I think that like, we shouldn't gatekeep why artists or creators create NFTs. Sometimes if they just want to create an NFT that's a piece of art and people buy it, and they're very upfront about, this is not a project, this is not a community that we're trying to build. I think that's sort of fine, right? It's transparent. And then the ones that I really think though need to go back to the drawing board are the ones that sort of try to raise a lot of capital really quickly on the promises of like community and all these other things, but then end up doing nothing. That's a lot worse in my eyes, and still happens quite often.
Yep. Yeah, and I just think that it I had this conversation the other day where it's like, let's say that I decided to randomly like submit an LLC, and I put like, Ash's toy store on it, or whatever the case may be. Like, if I post that on Twitter, it's not like I'm going to have hundreds and hundreds of people that are going to be immediately sending me money, right? Like, that just doesn't work like that. But here, for whatever reason, if I put like Ash's toy store with a Twitter and, a couple graphics on it, and I just like add the word NFT, all of a sudden, like, I mean, even as it was just mentioned, like, people randomly just like throw ETH at like at a contract address. And I just find that to be so funny, because it's like, one thing is so like Web 2, where it's like, yeah, like nobody's going to send you money for no reason. But then here it's just like people are just sending people money for no reason.
I mean, that's just froth in action, right? That's just like literally people trying so bad, so hard to hit that like 1000x that they saw someone post about on Twitter, that they just throw their good sense out the window, and you hate to see it.
Yeah, that's just the world that we live in.
And also, I really hope we get that money back. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's and I say this, like, people will say like, oh, like, there's issues with this and that, but like, admittedly, like, the community is to blame. Like, they're the ones that continue to engage like in all of this stuff. And so as long as that's the case, like, it'll keep going. Like, it's just it's the nature of crypto. Like, I saw Zach XBT put up a tweet earlier today where there's one wallet, one guy who's launched like 150 different shit coins within the past like 60 days. And like,
I
that's
feel like
crazy
that's
to
like
me.
a good spot for that Will Ferrell meme. I'm not even mad. That's amazing. Like, how do you even find the time to launch that many shitcoins that quickly?
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah, literally though. It's crazy to see that. But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's like at least my overarching take. Like, I'm big on collectibles. Like, don't get me wrong, like I definitely like to speculate if there's good founders, if they, I mean, you obviously, this is Nouns, right? Like, if there's good organizations that are putting stuff together, and if they have good strong leadership, like, I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. It's just strong leadership. if you have that, and also like at least in Noun's case, like there clearly are a bunch of level-headed people. Like I'm sure like, there's always like the random like thing that comes up every once in a while, but for the most part, like, level-headed people that are working towards something together, like, that's awesome. You don't see that all that often. And I actually was going to ask you about this too, because I wasn't able to head over to the sailing event, but I was just, now that we're here, right? Like I know that, like, prop had passed to where money was put towards like sailing in New York for NFT NYC with the Nouns glasses, like, on the sails. And I just kind of wanted to like hear your thought about that, and just like the way that the community reacted to it, and just like everybody in general, because it looked amazing.
Well, the interesting thing about that prop, I would say, is that it wasn't the way it ended up being, which was an incredible like networking event, sort of, for anyone who was at NFT NYC, who was sort of Nouns or Nouns adjacent or invited by someone who was. It was really great, but that wasn't really like what it was, what the proposal was originally. The original proposal, if I'm not speaking out of turn here, was to do the smaller sailboats, like to do the custom sails with the Nounish art, and essentially just sail them up and down the Hudson. At some point in time, that scope got expanded to include the 110-foot sailing yacht, and have some drinks and stuff, and for us to join them and be able to sail and watch them. I don't know where that was funded from, actually. I think it might have been small grants or somewhere else, but in any case, it was kind of added on after the fact. And that's one thing that you see sort of a lot that I've noticed within Nouns, is like, it is truly a decentralized DAO, but people will get funded, teams will get funded to do these props, and then they'll just naturally start working with other funding bodies and other proposal teams or funded teams to collaborate and make even better events and better activations and proliferation efforts. So that's kind of what this was all about, is just like everybody who was there in NYC just trying to make that event as fun as it could be, and it was really great.
Yeah, that's at least like what I could tell. I mean, it seemed like it was awesome, and you don't see that like all that often. Now, yes, there's like, you go to these events. There's events that are hosted at bars and whatnot, but that definitely felt like a lot more of like a fun, cool, intimate thing that I don't know who came up with that idea, but like I said, you just don't see a lot of that.
Well,
Like that's
what
just
I mean by this is like, so this was actually a proposal by someone who is extremely interested in sailing, and it's a big part of his life. His name is Five Oceans, and he already did a prop similar to this in Hong Kong, where they sailed these in the Hong Kong harbor, and it was extremely successful. Got a lot of really nice pictures from it, and then this was his follow-up prop to do it in New York, and then it just kind of evolved from that into also being kind of a social event at the same time. So I think it has to come from that place of passion first, rather than just being like, hey, let's rent a yacht and ball out. Like if that was the intention, I think it would have been a much different event.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and it's cool to hear it from like that perspective. I do have a question that I want to ask, because I know that you've obviously like been involved with the community, and like I've made it a point to try to join up on as much like as much content as I can recently, like whether it's spaces and whatnot. And one thing that I haven't heard asked is so what do you think is like the highlight of Nouns in general? Like, what do you think has been like one of the most memorable events or things that has happened? And I'm interested to hear, for whoever's up here, like your thoughts on that, because I know that there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since like day one, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll start and take the easy one, and then I'll go to the other folks on the stage, and they can answer as well. But for me, if we're setting aside the sailing that happened this NFT NYC, I think the Rose Parade was definitely just kind of surreal to see. So if you're not in the loop, there was a proposal by Stupid Buddy, the producers who did Robot Chicken, to create a documentary about nouns, and as part of that, they were going to put together a float all about nouns and put it into the Rose Parade, which is held in Pasadena every year on New Year's Day, or in this case, it was January the 2nd. So we had like a full ass like nouns float, in there alongside like T-Mobile and all these other huge brands. So it was just kind of surreal to watch it on video. And then similar to what I mentioned earlier about how this sailing prop started out as just like a small sailing regatta in the Hudson and then turned into something bigger with additional collaboration. In the case of the Rose Parade, there was another builder, Optoshi, who does a lot of on the ground activations at different events, crypto and sort of normie events as well. And she put in a prop to bring sort of her organizational skills to bear and travel out to Pasadena and assemble a team to kind of, follow the float around and, wear these nounish jumpsuits and pass out foldable noggles and just kind of essentially have an activation at the same time. So that was happening also during the float. And just generally watching that, like we did a watch party in our Discord on that day and watched the parade and seeing it sort of broadcast on TV with the reporters kind of trying to make sense of it all. It was pretty cool. In my opinion, that was sort of a threshold moment where it was like, wow, building a global brand maybe is actually possible somehow over time in a decentralized manner. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, for me it was. Again, for me, honestly, the sailing in the New York Harbor was probably the one that felt the best. By the way, I just double checked. The first prop was in Seoul, in South Korea, and then this one originally the big boat was supposed to trade people off of the small boats, so more people could sail in the small boats. They couldn't do that for safety reasons, so that's why it sort of turned into a mixer essentially.
Okay.
But that's what happened there. Yeah, it was included. The big boat was in the original prop, though.
Okay. I knew he was from Seoul, but for some reason I thought it was in the Hong Kong harbor. I don't know why. But anyway, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the biggest one hasn't fully been executed yet, and it's the documentary that Stupid Buddy's doing. Having seen some of Neil's other work, Neil is the guy recording the documentary. Having seen some of his other documentary work, like, I think that's going to be huge. And I'm just really excited to see that happen.
Plus the clips that Seth did. So Seth Green did some clips like for the Rose Parade that were used on TV and those were kind of, I think, from the working the working stuff that they're using for the documentary. And he was doing such a good job of explaining what nouns is in like layman's terms that people who don't care about crypto would really understand. So that gave me a lot of excitement for the documentary as well.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So on that, what are the plans for distributing that? Do you know yet?
I actually don't know what their plans are.
Documentary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's being released CC0. I remember that being a topic of discussion. And that a lot of the like B-roll was also going to be made available, I believe, to be used by other builders. But I don't know exactly what the distribution plan was for them, except that I think they were just going to bring their network to bear to have some distribution once it's released.
Yeah, I know that they're basically in the original prop, they planned submitting to festivals, pitching to streamers and networks, and even like pitching to YouTube and stuff like that, just to keep it from being behind a paywall.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have like another hobby. I'm like really big into arcade games, and there was a documentary. It's like one of the first like real good like pieces of content that's been like professionally made, and it reminds me a little bit about this. And it's funny that you say like not putting it behind a paywall, because like I've wanted to watch that, but you need to have like Apple TV or something for it. And like by all means, like I don't mind, like sure, I'll like sign up for it if I need to, but making it like readily available. I know like a lot of people, especially now, this is an entire other conversation, but people love talking about like token gating content in the future, news and websites and like all this kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, this is the future. And like, I definitely hear you on that. Like, because it's like part of like a use case, like I get that, but at the same time, for something like this, like not putting it behind a paywall so that people can enjoy it and readily access it, I feel like that there's a lot of like merit to that.
Well, that's also just the ethos of CC0 in general too, is just to have, you know, all of these primitives, whatever they may be, available for builders to sort of riff on and keep that flywheel going. And so, I mean, if my time in Nouns has taught me anything, it's really that like that is the best way and maybe the only way to really build like organic communities of builders who care enough about a meme to keep building on it. Is A, to have it freely available for anyone to use, and B, to have like some incentives in place for people to want to build cool shit. In this case, you know, a $50 million treasury that funds builders to do that, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I definitely wanted to hear your guys' take on that, just because I know that when you join up on something like this and you spend a lot of time on it, I know that there's like a lot of ups and downs. And I know that when it's like a truly decentralized thing where everybody like has their own say as to like how everything goes, it can sometimes be there's a lot of freedom to it, but it could also be frustrating when, you know, certain people think it should go a certain way or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's like the main reason as to why I ask about just like, you know, the heights and like the highlights. And I didn't know if like any of that would have been affected by the way that the market has been, or like, you know, if you guys have even noticed anything like about that within Nouns. Because what's crazy is, like, for what it's worth, right? Like everybody, not everyone, but like a lot of people are struggling right now. And like there's a new noun every day that keeps getting minted, and like there's, you know, they're still selling for a lot. And I guess like my other thing that I definitely like to hear is like, you know, everybody says that the market hurts, right? But have you really like felt that within Nouns?
So obviously the price of Nouns, if we talk about floor price, has been affected just like, you know, every other price in every other NFT project and crypto in the past year. But I will say that one thing that I have noticed within Nouns, and you know, feel free to correct me because I may be somewhat in a bubble, but I do feel like there's been some like solace from the bear market within Nouns. Like it's never felt like super depressing like it has in some other corners of crypto during the worst parts of the bear. There's always people building. There's always been prop house rounds where people can, you know, create cool stuff and get funded to do it. There's, you know, still funding coming out to projects like ours here at TNS to keep doing what we're doing with community building and outreach. It's not like, you know, now it's like put the brakes on all funding to you know, hunker down and weather the bear. So I feel like the energy in Nouns overall, even though like there's obviously with any DAO, there's always going to be you know, issues and squabbling sometimes. But I feel like the overall sentiment has been, you know, several decibels better than or higher than anywhere else in the market. But I'm curious to know what other people think.
I feel like we're somewhat insulated because there is that possibility of accessing. That prop house has really done a great job of keeping people that are deeply entrenched in the ecosystem, even outside of Nouns, activating treasuries of projects that maybe had some difficulty scaling or engaging. That there's an opportunity for people that are wanting to do the work simply by proposing without having to hold the token.
Even treasuries aside, yeah, without holding the token is a big piece of it, because I think what Nouns does really well is it makes fans. You know, people are fans of the art, fans of the ethos of the culture of the community, and that creates sort of people like myself and lots of other people who are, you know, willing to sort of build in this space every single day. And yeah, I think it's because we're like really fans of all that stuff first and foremost. Whereas, you know, most other projects, to be honest, I think most of their owners are speculators first and foremost.
Yeah, a lot of that makes sense. I just wanted to hear it from like your perspective, because all I ever see on the timeline is, people talking about bear market this, and like, founders should do this, and like everybody with the pitchforks up. And I just didn't know like what the vibe and sentiment is. And like one thing that I did want to like Toady, I had mentioned this, like I've been spending some time just looking at the stage, and like 6 days ago there was a Pizza Head noun that sold for 42 ETH, right?
Yes.
Like, so what's the deal with that? Like, do you know like anything about that, or like what was the reasoning behind that?
You'd
He
have to
was
ask
here,
the
by the
Bauer.
way.
He was just here actually. He left the Bauer.
Yeah, the boy was here.
Yeah.
Wait, I will just ping him
Yes.
on Discord for him to join us.
Come back on and we can find out. I assume, like, usually when you see outliers like that, most of the time, Ash, it's just aesthetics. People just had their eye on a specific head, and because rarity is kind of a weird thing within nouns. You can't really predict when another head's going to come up that way, or when you see one that you really love. Sometimes people just spend extra. Like I minted, we chose a dark factory a few weeks back, which was just kind of rare looking because it was all dark. Like, no, the accessory was dark, the shirt was dark, the head was like a factory, so it just kind of looked like an evil noun or something. And anyway, several people really wanted it. It ended up going for like, what was it, like 57 or something, 57 ETH. So like,
Yeah, something like that.
almost triple the floor. So there's no rhyme or reason sometimes why people might just pay a lot of money for a noun that they really resonate with.
That Pizza Head noun went to snacks from Pizza DAO, and I'm sure the 42 was just for the meme.
Wait, are you sure? Because no, the one from Pizza DAO was actually bought by Wilson Cusack because he recently sold it and then bought the car. But I thought the one he was talking about, the 40 ETH one, was the Bauer that bought it.
Oh, I'm not sure then.
Yeah, we can check into that. But I know Wilson Cusack had a pizza noun that he really liked. The one with the Wii accessory, is that the one? Like WE? I don't have it in front of
Yeah, I'm not sure which. I thought the one that was prevalent
The
in
the
my mind
Bauer,
was.
yeah, the Bauer one was for 26.
Okay, so maybe it was Wilson that paid 42 for the other Pizza Head, and you'd have to ask him why.
No, it was snacks that paid 42 for it.
Well, then he paid 42 to Wilson for it then, because Wilson just sold.
Yeah, correct.
Gotcha. I guess in that case he just really wanted it. Is the answer there? Because
Yeah,
it's Pizza DAO. It had a Wii accessory, so it was kind of like a perfect noun for a Pizza DAO. So, in that case, sometimes it's just people who resonate with a specific combination of traits, and they're willing to pay a bit of a premium for it. So that's what happened there.
Yeah, people love the Wheeze hat noun too. This one always do pretty well on auctions.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's certain heads in general, Ash, that tend to bring a premium as well. Like there's the skeleton tends to do pretty well. The unicorn usually does pretty well. Cats always have a premium. I have no idea why, but cats always go for more. I guess the internet just really loves cats.
Cats are sexy, man.
it's
Look
the
at my
internet. Yeah.
PFP.
Akva knows why. Microwaves always go for much less than floor. Sorry, Al. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a thing. I'm just making fun of Al 409 down there. We do have the Bauer here, but I think we did figure out that wasn't the pizza that you were talking about anyway. Still, he can join us if you'd like to tell us why he bought that pizza.
Yeah, I was curious just because, like, I know that in a lot of other collections, which I mean, obviously, same thing here. Like, there's certain traits that just get adopted as being the best ones, and in collections where you have like real collectors, or just, yeah, obviously, there's like a lot of volume. People will go for like certain traits that are more aesthetically pleasing. And when I saw this, because I was looking at it, and it stands out. It's like, okay, like this is the highest sale in a while. Pizza Head. And I just like didn't know, like it would make sense, right? Like nouns, if somebody wanted it for like some sort of like I mean it's CCO, right? But like if somebody wanted it, and to just to say that they own something for like a pizza restaurant or like whatever the case may be, like I don't know.
Well,
And then there
essentially,
was like
that
another.
is ultimately your instincts were right on that, because the people that did pay for it was a DAO called Pizza DAO, so they wanted a pizza head that had "we" on the shirt because we are a DAO, etc. So you're right that it's just like people's sentiments about why they're buying that noun sometimes makes them spend a little bit more. Because the other thing to remember too is there's actually no rarity in nouns, like no explicit rarity. There's no traits. If you go to OpenSea, there's not even any traits there. So technically all nouns are the same, and any premium that's ascribed to one noun over another would be for one of three reasons. One, it's aesthetically pleasing to certain people. Two, the number, like the actual issuance number is lower, so maybe earlier nouns are worth more. And three, like either the date or the number of the noun are interesting. Maybe it was minted on Christmas, or maybe it was minted on Easter or New Year's Day, or maybe it was noun 666 or noun 420, noun 69, etc.
Yeah,
We
no,
we
sorry, go
also
ahead.
have firsts. So
Yes.
there are still some unminted heads that, the noun that Wilson replaced his pizza head with was the first ever car. And we had a first today on the show too that went to the Nounders. So
I don't
that
know if
won't
first.
ascribe value, but
I'd be curious to go on like pronouns.gg or whatever that site is and see if first nouns do bring in a premium, because I don't know if that's proven out to be the case over time. Actually, maybe like in a long period of time they will, like maybe in 10 years time people will care which one was the first car, but right now I don't know. I mean, Wilson cared obviously, but I think that's because he liked the noun in general.
Yeah, I wanted to hear it from your guys' perspective, because like I have been listening to like a lot of this stuff, and I I know that once again, like different communities just value things in different ways. And to even hear like, oh, like the first this, the first that, like, I mean, I'm sure you guys heard about like the Bitcoin inscriptions and like, all that kind of thing about how like the lower numbers, like they're sought after or whatever the case may be. And this is just like a conversation, I guess, that didn't come up recently. And I wanted to bring it up and just like hear it from you guys,
I can
just
see
because like
I can see Aqua
yeah,
down there twitching as soon as you said the word ordinals. He's like, his little cat ears are twitching.
why?
GM.
He just loves ordinals.
Really?
Yeah, great collection there. I mean, I met Ash there in the Bitcoin Wizards meetup.
Oh, did you?
Pretty cool indeed. People like dressing wizards clothes. So fun.
Yeah.
Doxed.
Yeah.
Doxed.
Yeah, it's so wild. Like, I mean, that was because like I remember going to that, and yeah, there were people IRL that were wearing like the big, or no, like the wizard like uh like costumes, and I was just like, dude, this reminds me of Halloween. So like so random, but I dig it a lot. Yeah, I figured that was like the first thing that came to my head when you were talking about like first car, first cat, like how does that work? And I do know that like the whole like low inscription number, it's a thing, right? Like everybody loves like low serial numbers and stuff. So interesting to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because like I wouldn't know if I didn't ask. Like I wouldn't know how to get this information really unless I mean talk to somebody specifically that's been into markets. And this is one of the reasons why like I really like NFTs, is because I do love I like the trading, the collectability, like the way that they move, and like pricing and like all that kind of stuff.
I love getting the questions from someone who's like testing the waters and like wading into nouns, and sort of getting those questions like half from the outside in. Because you're right, like if you're thinking of nouns as like a true, just like a basic DAO, and you want to participate in the DAO and have the most impact on the DAO, then you should just be going to Blur and picking up whatever the cheapest noun is, and not caring anything about the aesthetics. But the truth is, most people don't do that. I would say, I want to venture to say the majority of people who join nouns join via the auction. I can't really,
Yeah,
I don't have
exactly.
data to support that, but just anecdotally, that's what I've noticed.
Because the thing is, nouns is not a typical collection. People don't really buy nouns as an investment. Of course, some people do, some flippers do, but usually they don't. I mean, nouns is basically a CC0 IP later. It's like a founding machine of a creative like renaissance or something. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's something very, very different from what we're used to. So people really purchase nouns as a donation. So some come to build, but many like big collectors like Punk 6529, Barrett, and all these guys with like heavy bags, they just purchase a noun because they know it's important for the culture. So these guys, they're not going to just purchase on Blur. They understand the system, so they just purchase on the auction and they just make a donation, and
And
they don't even vote.
frankly, like
Right?
winning a
Yeah.
noun at auction is just more fun. I know when Ugly Dow bought our two nouns, like we never even really thought for a second about buying off of secondary, even though our entire ethos was to buy ugly nouns. So surely we could have picked some up off of secondary for some kind of a discount. But it was just more fun and more of a rite of passage to be able to, battle it out in the auction and have your moment in the sun where you get to be on the site as the winner, etc. So I'm sure others feel that way as well. We do have the Bauer back on stage if we want to ask him why he bought the pizza noun. Ash Robbins here, and he's
I
trying
can
to
answer
wrap
that.
his head trying to wrap his head around why people buy certain nouns. So
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of just jumping in the space. I'm not sure what you guys were talking about before, but Akva sent me a DM and said you were guys talking about the Pizza Head. So we were doing the film for the movie for the Nouns contest,
yeah.
and we needed to decide on a main character, and we had some choices, but we ended up on the Pizza Head just because we thought it was the coolest. Back then we weren't even aware that there was a pizza DAO, but we just thought it would be so funny, like a pizza head walking around the city. And the movie was already in production when Noun 675 came on auction. And when I
No
saw
way.
it, I was looking for. Go ahead.
No, I just said no way. That's amazing that you already had him
Yeah.
already
So
had him in the film.
yes, yes. So we had him on the film, and I was looking for a second noun already. And when the Pizza Head came in, I just thought, it's the perfect, everything aligning together. So I was gonna get it anyway, up to a certain point. But yeah, when it came on, I kind of had to have it. So that's the story
There you
there.
go.
So I guess from my trader mindset, did you just market by that, or did you know who the owner was and try to negotiate with them, or did you just click buy?
It was
So
auction.
so
He
so that
just,
so that noun was, yeah, it was on the auction, and I was keeping up with the auction very closely, and I did my first bid at like 25 or 24 something, and then I think somebody came in a little bit above that. I think I put another one, and another person came in, and then I put my latest one at 2601, and it got settled. So that's kind of how it went.
Ash,
It was just very focused.
I think the one you're thinking of is the one that Snacks bought from Wilson.
Yeah, that is the one. Okay, so
Yeah,
now
that was specifically because it was for Pizza DAO.
okay,
same pizza parlor,
Yeah.
but a different day. This one was baked
Got
a
it.
few days later.
When we talk about off-label provenance, one of the interesting nouns that exists is the one that Victor got. So there's Victor Solomon, who's done some interesting things within the ecosystem and kind of adjacent to it with Vesselverse. He got a noun through proposal from the Nounders, so that would have a strange provenance, and ones that I think that probably don't necessarily pair with the piece, but there was a proposal put in by Art Matter to have robotics reproduce nouns for a week, which they did do. So the nouns that came in that week would have a physical made by a robot as funded by a proposal within the nouns. I don't know that any of them are necessarily paired, but that was kind of interesting. And then also the Tom Sachs piece. So Tom Sachs drew a noun, and then Gremplin traded him for that original drawing for a noun that he held. They're all kind of strange asides, but
Strange
part of the
noun
lore.
stories.
The Art Matter nouns also the mattered canvases are being sent to any of the noun owners that want them. So if you own the corresponding noun, you also get the canvas that the robot drew on.
That's cool. So there's any number of reasons why people might choose an individual noun, I suppose. But I think that primarily it's
awesome.
Most of the time, though, it's aesthetics. You know, whenever I hear people looking for a noun, they're looking for a specific head, specific combination of colors or heads, and accessories. So it all comes down to looks in the end for nouns, it seems.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I didn't mean to like derail this in any sort of way. I had like a lot of thoughts.
This is our secret. We have no rails, so impossible to derail us. We're just here to chat. So I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, I've just been trying to like wrap my mind around it a little bit, just because once again, like, you know, I've been in NFTs for like 2 years, and so, you know, I've spent time in discords where, like, you know, gold is always like considered a sought after trade, or like alien or something like that. And as you mentioned, like, one of the things, like, as I was just like looking around, I was like, okay, so there's no metadata, right? Like there's no traits or anything on this, and so it's just like purely aesthetics. But I can understand that, right? Because obviously collectors in certain areas, like, they just want what they want, and they want to rock like their favorite stuff.
It's interesting that you
And so,
mentioned that, because we had a space yesterday where 4156, the founder of Nouns, dropped in to chat about some Nouns proposals. And at the very end of the space, the founder of Nouns, the Utes Nouns, was there, and he asked if you could, ask a couple questions, essentially, 4156, in the vein of, like, if you were founding Nouns today, would you do anything differently? Which was kind of an interesting question, and 41 took it. So if you missed that, it's like just after the hour mark on yesterday's Agora Town Hall space. But yeah, it was interesting to hear what 41 had to say. And one of the things he talked about was just like, he's almost regretful that they didn't keep nouns even more primitive than they did. Like maybe they shouldn't have even had a nouns.wtf site. Like maybe it should have just been mint from contract, and literally everything else was emergent. Because as it was, like, it was pretty bare bones. It was just a site and a Discord and a Twitter. But he was kind of saying, like, maybe it should have been even more bare bones and allowed sort of the community to create all the tools, rather than sort of retroactively trying to get people to create alternative tools. So that was kind of interesting. And another question that they asked was about one of ones, and why there was no, or whether they ever thought of putting one of ones into the nouns collection. So like maybe like a special head or something that was drawn, like maybe use like Cryptodes as an example. Gremplin did all the pixel art in Cryptodes, but there's also all of these drawn, Cryptodes that are one of ones that are extremely valuable. So the question was, like, why didn't they do, like, I don't know, a drawn car or a drawn stereo or whatever? And 41's answer to that, again, was just about, like, trying to keep everything sort of basic building blocks and primitives, so that, with the CC0 flywheel being what it is, everyone could kind of create all those things on top of it. But the core sort of, the core nugget of whatever nouns is very simple.
yeah, no, that's actually cool to hear. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna have to listen to that, and just like hear what his thoughts are, because I think I missed that. I think I caught the beginning part of that one, but not the end of it.
Yeah, it was a really great space. If you missed it, sometimes those impromptu drop-ins from Nounders or other Nounders are some of the best talks that we have. But it was really cool to hear that specific question, like, would you do anything differently if you had to go back and found nouns? So I recommend listening back. But
Yeah,
the interesting thing about nouns is, like, if you thought that nouns should have a one of one head, you could draw one, or commission someone to draw one, and make a proposal to the DAO to include it with, as one of the possible heads. So that's possible.
How often does that happen?
It's only happened once, and the initiative was kicked off by the founders of Nouns. It was on the anniversary of Nouns, the Nouniversary, on August 8th last year, and they had a contest basically where anyone who wanted to add new heads and accessories could put in their entries, and then there was a judging panel that picked the top 8, and I forget how many accessories and different noggles, and then they added them all in one fell swoop to the possible iterations. But technically, you could put a prop up tomorrow to add, an Ash Robin head to the collection, and if you convinced enough Nouners to do it, then it would go into the collection, or at least the possibilities.
An Ash Ketchum hat.
There you go.
Yeah, could you imagine? No, I love the freedom behind this.
It's funny, we were talking with Zero X Designer. He was there actually at the event on the boat that we were talking about earlier, and when we told him that, he was like, I'm gonna invent a Nouns head and put up a prop. So I don't know if he still plans to do that, but he was going to. At least a few beers deep on the boat, he was going to. So I'm not sure if that still stands.
Yeah, I'm sure the ideas that were rolling around on the boats, highly intoxicated, were amazing.
I wouldn't say highly intoxicated, but yeah, they might have. Might have been some lubrication.
There was a bit of booze, but honestly, not much. It was just like White Claws.
So basic.
Staring at nouns every day, I would be more inclined to remove traits. The stuff that I just don't need to see ever get minted.
Yeah, that's been talked about too, like
But,
retiring traits. And interestingly, that in that conversation, sometimes it turns into like whether that would become political too, like where people would want to retire a trait after they buy it. For example, like, oh, I don't want anyone else to have the boombox. I'm going to retire that trait so that it becomes more rare over time. That gives me.
We should do it with the index card.
Yeah, that would be that would be pretty.
But to be honest, I think noun specification it's a very very interesting subject, and we're still in the early days, so we don't really see a difference. But you have collectors like Beautiful NFTs, who is a big nouns whale, who owns more than 10 nouns, and he only collects low ID nouns.
Right.
Because this is his thesis. He thinks that the early nouns will worth more. And to be honest, I really agree, but not now. I think we'll have to wait like a couple years to see the value of like the early nouns being higher, And also like nouns of history, nouns with a lore behind it, they will worth more in my opinion, not just the aesthetics. But I think we're so worried that we're not really seeing this yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, even if you have like some rare heads and they can be just replicated and not be rare anymore, people always prefer something that is beautiful and also something that is rare. You cannot just explain human mind; just it is what it is. And something interesting is like the skate heads. We had like a wave of skate heads after like Nara's proposal, and we were always like writing and trying to get skate heads on the fomonouns, and we were able to make it actually. So we went from like three heads, I think, which was from Parzival from China, Gami, and another one, to like six in I don't know like 2 months.
Gami's
because of the
Gami's like, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for making my main noun even less valuable by FOMOing a bunch of skateboard heads. Much appreciated. Yeah, I think you're right. I was going to mention that earlier about how it's too early to tell, whether early provenance will matter in value. Like it makes sense that it should, but it is interesting to see like, rare Pepe cards are worth more because of their provenance and because of their age, but, CryptoKitties, not so much. So sometimes age and provenance isn't enough. There's like some weird formula that goes into it, whether it's going to have certain market value.
Yeah, do you think that with CryptoKitties it's just because of like the overwhelming supply?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there could be a lot of different reasons, but and maybe they just never became Lindy goods, like they just never had that cachet attached to them for whatever reason. But it's just an example to pick out of thin air about something that is old but isn't necessarily valuable, even though it's old.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that community, but it is interesting for you bring that up because like I know that we were talking about it earlier with like ACVA, right? Like about just like Bitcoin ordinals and stuff, and it's just like I think it's still too early to know about a lot of this stuff. There's so much speculation, but it just depends on like what the next huge run looks like how many people come in. Because I mean, the people that are here, I'm assuming, are going through and they are acquiring stuff that they're placing their bets on for long term, right? So that's interesting to consider.
For sure. Well, let me ask you, Ash. I'll turn it around on you because I think you've been doing a better job of interviewing us than vice versa today. So kudos to you. But I'd love to ask you a question. So what caught your eye about Nouns as someone who was like really entrenched and creating content in the ecosystem and seeing so many different projects? What sort of drew you into Nouns to be like, I kind of want to learn more about this and maybe participate in the community?
Well, so a couple things. I will say this that like after being in Web3 and NFTs for so long and like just I mean I've talked to a lot of people. I'm sure you guys have done the same thing, right? Like there's a lot of people that come and go and one thing that definitely sticks out and that I've noticed is that like things come and go and there's like ups and downs for different organizations like with whatever it may be, which kind of like ties into the question that I asked earlier, just like about whether or not you thought that there was like any sort of like change ever since like the market got bad. And I just one big thing that I dig is the idea that everything that you guys have been doing is still going on and that there's people that are just naturally excited to be a part of it. Now, one thing in Toady, like I think we spoke about this is when I was in college, like I was in a bunch of like student organizations and I had the same kind of thing where it was like I would join like a certain organization and like I would take a leadership position and I would feel like a certain type of way about it and it felt like it was really mine and so I wanted to put a lot of my time and effort and I wanted to represent it and like I felt like that was a part of me for that time and when I think that's one of the reasons why I really got into Web3 and why I like it in general is just because I like to feel like I'm a part of something. And like one big thing, and I don't know if you guys like I'm interested to hear about like turnover in terms of members, but my assumption, and I could be wrong about this, but like I would assume that there's like a lot of like the same people that have been a part of the community for a while. And it gives me that whole thing where it's like before like I would get into a certain project and people would their attention span is really short and so people would join in on one thing. It's like we see it on Twitter all the time, like people will tweet about one thing and then they join into like a different like you could bring up like Nakamigos, like it's like really big right now. Like, is it going to be the same thing like in a month or two from now? Like people will eventually move on and like what's going to keep that moving forward? And it's just like what has stood the test of time. And so
Yeah.
so just to like end the thought, right? Like it's just about that. Like you guys have stood the test of time. People do feel that ownership, and at least from what I can tell, because I'm not on the inside, it does seem like the people that are in it are like there is like this feeling of responsibility, and it seems like obviously it has continued on thus far without any sort of like major implosion.
Well, I think that is true. Like Nouns is still kicking and it's still growing every day. But I think it's also important to look at things through a realistic lens too and see that like Nouns has, lots of issues and lots of conflicts because it's a true decentralized DAO with lots of different members with different opinions. And so, if you sort of get right into it, you'll see that there's people that have different, views and maybe sort of goals for what they think Nouns should be. But to me, like that's what makes Nouns actually interesting is that people do care enough to have different visions and different thoughts about what Nouns should be. Whereas, most DAOs are more like just for pretend and just for like governance theater. If you get entrenched in Nouns, you'll find that it's very much like a family in the sense that like everybody's, everyone sort of on the same page for the most part, but there's a lot of arguing and stuff like that, just like in any family. The Bauer has an idea. to add as well, I think.
Yeah, I really related to what you guys said in terms of I think a lot of the reasons why I decided to join Nouns is because of that we see a lot of NFT projects and just projects in general in Web3, and they're centered around this FOMO idea and cycles and hype cycles. And then you kind of rely on these founding members that decide where the project goes, and a lot of the times they're just focused on let's just get the maximum amount of hype and get this project to the maximum floor price. And with Nouns it's just completely like different because there's the whole community is controlling the treasury, and I think that's the thing that differentiate Nouns from all the other NFT projects are doing. So that's like the main reason that got me into Nouns.
It's just incentives, right? Like you can talk down on project founders all you want, but when you set up perverse incentives where all of the money comes up front and then you're just supposed to want to build for 10 years with no other promise of making any more money because royalties are dead. So the only way you can make more money to support your project at that point is to mint more stuff and make your collectors want to buy it. So when you look at that as a model, is it that surprising that people end up riding off into the sunset with all this ETH? Because it's just set up in a weird way for incentives. Whereas, comparing that to Nouns, where the founders don't even get any ETH, they get vested Nouns, so they're kind of like aligned in the vision of the DAO. It's just like night and day comparatively.
Thank you for explaining it better than me.
No. That wasn't my intention at all. I think I'm just agreeing with you 100%. Like what you said is 100% true.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that as well. And so like to your question, like I think that's just like a lot of what it is. Like I think that like with a lot of these communities, like as we know, like there's a ton of projects, there's not as many people, people's time is very valuable. And I think that the communities that are worth being a part of are the ones where it's like a lot of people do, like now especially, and even during COVID, like they were spending a lot of time on their computer and at home, and this is where people do become friends, and that's what people want to be a part of, right? Like they want to be a part.
That's where people become degens.
Yeah, well, in NFT specifically, yes. This is where people come together to join communities and then shitcoin all day and lose it all. But yeah, like that's like a big thing is that I like to pay attention to just like this social psychology of all of this, where like you see how people react, and people love to be a part of a community when things are going well, and then when times get tough, like you see the true colors. And unfortunately, for a lot of founders, like a lot of them and like I'm not going to go out and like throw a blanket statement, but I would say like generally speaking, there's a lot of people that did have good intentions, but maybe they just weren't good leaders, maybe they're not good community builders or whatever. But the fact is that like now we're seeing like everything it's kind of like what's happening with like you see like Azuki and Beans and like Utes and D-Gods. Like those communities are so strong. People want to be a part of them in a huge way, and there's like a lot of social recognition that you get from that. And we're seeing like a lot of these other like quote bull market projects that the communities have just said like, all right, like I've tried my best, but I want to hang out with people that I like I want to be around a place where people are working together that I can, progress and like all that kind of thing. And I think that like NFT NYC, it definitely like shows you that. And I'm sure you guys saw this as well, like with your event. It's like when you go to those events, it feels so different, and it like almost validates like your time spent in Web3.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I feel like we could probably talk about governance and NFT projects and all this stuff until the cows come home, but we do have to end this space at some point. Before we start to wind down, though, I wanted to ask about your entry to the Enter the Nouniverse contest, because that's actually what prompted me to reach out to you and ask if you wanted to come on and hang with us, which I'm glad we did. But tell us a little bit about how you found out about that contest, and I've pinned your entry up above if you want to talk about it a bit.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep this brief, but like, kind of as I mentioned initially, is that content has always just been my thing. Like I've always loved, like I've done it a lot. Like Akva mentioned that, like he's like kept up with the content that I've put out, and so it was kind of just like a natural thing that I was just like, okay, like I definitely want to make something, and I wanted to make it like a little bit different. So I had like a little animation made, and I wanted to make it something to where like it was a piece of content that if it was showed to anybody, it was like cute and almost like kind of like commercial like. But yeah, like I found out about it through a friend who his name is Nikki G. He sent it to me a while ago, and he was just like, "Hey man, like, know you're a big content guy. This
We
is
know
happening."
Nikki well.
We know Nikki too well. He used to come to our spaces all the time and play fart noises. So we miss you, Nikki. Come back. Is that
Constantly.
Yeah,
is that the Nikki
yeah.
you know and love?
You said fart noises, like actual?
No,
Yeah, yeah. He came on with
I
his
hope
own rogue soundboard.
I hope he was using a soundboard. We assume he
Ah,
was using a soundboard.
yes. Yeah. Well, so like I mean, God, this was months and months ago. And oddly enough, like I will say, like, I did spend a lot of time like thinking about it. And what's funny is that like I was on the phone with the guy who does all my thumbnails, who's like, he helps me with ideas. And I was just like, man, like, what if I've never like gone skydiving before? And I was like, dude, like that might be like a good idea. And then sure enough, some other guy like made a video of him jumping out of a plane, and I was just like, son of a, like, this guy just like literally, like, I don't think that I would have done that. Like I'd be losing myself. But
Well,
yeah.
this is actually the best case scenario because now you can say that he stole your idea and you didn't have to go skydiving. So best of both
Oh,
worlds.
oh yeah, I'll just be honest. Like I had the idea, and I was just like, I just don't even know how I would be able to stomach that. Like I just die like mid flight. But yeah. So anyway, like I just once again, like I like making content. I like the challenge, and if anything, like I've seen like a lot of. I mean, I've kept up with nouns for like a while, and now I'm seeing like little nouns and like just the rest of the community and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, especially in a time like this when things have gotten to be generally slower, like it's nice to see like communities that are just like still moving and still working. And I mean, for what it's worth, like obviously, like appreciate the opportunity. Like it's life changing stuff to a lot of people to be able to do stuff like this. And if anything, as well, one big thing that I'll keep this brief, but like I think that one area that Web3 definitely can improve on as a whole is like the content and marketing side. Because obviously, like every business, like every project, like will need marketing, and I felt like this, like especially with the way that I approached mine, I felt like it was a good way to be able to discuss and talk about and like bring light to a project in a little bit more of a unique way. And I want to like keep moving forward with that. Just because like, once again, like everybody's going to need content, and this was a challenge. So yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Amazing. Well, best of luck in the competition. The competition is fierce. That Enter the Nouniverse has really grabbed a lot of people's attention and lots of amazing videos into that contest. But best of luck with your entry, and appreciate you putting the effort in to do it and to join us today. You're welcome, of course, to join us back here. When's our next one, Robot Fish Girl?
I think I think we might be back tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that's right. We do this every day, so we'll be here tomorrow for number 318, barring some, like, I don't know, what would it take, RFG, to make TNS miss NOC?
Literally everyone who is able to host, not being able to host, would probably do it.
I think
Twitter shutting down, which is probably the most likely culprit.
Remember when that asteroid hit and then all the dinosaurs had all that trouble? I think it'd be something similar to that.
Yeah, around there.
Something roundabout. And then the small mammals would come up and fill the evolutionary niche and start
Actually,
TNS.
you know what? I said Twitter shutting down. That's actually happened, and we just did it in Discord instead. So never mind. True. Even that wouldn't stop us.
Yeah, and this is a good chance to get in our weekly When Farcaster Spaces.
Yes.
DWR and Co. By the way, I saw Blue Sky which I've been checking out. That is Jack Dorsey's new Twitter clone. And does it still count as a Twitter clone when he's the one that made Twitter? Anyway, Blue Sky is interesting, and they've introduced rooms, so more of like a clubhouse type situation. So that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, nobody's there, so that's the problem always with these things. There's no network effects, but I'm keeping an eye on it, and I really just hope we see the same thing for protocols like Farcaster. Which I know it's going to be harder because everything's sort of on chain, so it makes it more difficult to do voice, but hopefully one day.
Yeah, well, I really hope so.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you guys for having me up. I'll definitely feel a little bit better about requesting to speak on other spaces. But had a great time like chatting with you guys, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys whenever.
Sounds good. When Ash Robin Noun? That's the next question.
Yeah, I know. ETH is crashing right now, and if only we could get back to like that $1,100 or $1,200 range. Oh man, that would be beautiful. Scoop it up.
Well, be careful what you wish for. If you were praying for that when we got on the space, you're starting to get your prayers answered live on the space here. I think ETH and Bitcoin are down like 8% since we started this space. Not our fault. We didn't do it. I think it was Ash. Yeah, anyways. We'll be keeping an eye on that. We have a few housekeeping items, of course, to take care of on every 9 o'clock live. Mostly winners. Mostly we just want to give stuff away. So, so sue us. Don't actually sue us. We've got a couple winners here. We've got a couple winners here. One is a retweet picker winner. This is one person who retweeted the room today to help us get the word out about this space with Ash today. So I've got 0.069 ETH to give to one lucky retweeter after a drum roll. It is our friend Hanun Kipin. It's been a while since I've seen him come up on the retweet picker, but he's always around, always chilling, always entering our contest. So congratulations, Hanun. Don't worry about DMing us. We will get in touch with you, and I'm sure we have your wallet address on file, so we'll just verify that we've got the correct one. Congratulations. Nomo draw of the day. Every day we draw one lucky minter from the previous day's Nomo, and we just give them a bonus NFT because that's how we roll around here. We've got a bunch of Nounish NFTs and open editions in our Nomo wallet, and they're burning a hole in our wallet pocket, so we're giving them away to Nomo minters, just an extra little bonus, and thank you for minting a Nomo. Today's lucky Nomo winner is Yoda1, Yoda1.eth. I don't know if he's like the first instance of Yoda or if it's like Yoda1, man. Like, I don't know if
they won a couple days ago too.
Yoda1 I love. Oh,
I mean, it's what happens when you mint Nomos.
When you're a lucky Nomo, then sometimes that happens to you. So congratulations, Yoda. A free NFT we'll send. Was that a good Yoda? All right. Well, on that
a little more Smeagolish, I think.
that was more like
a crossover. The Boney, you know what? Boney finally gets out of bed and makes his way to 9 o'clock live just to heckle from the peanut gallery. I don't appreciate that. Boney, stay in the shower next time. Where you belong. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been another episode of 9 o'clock live. We do this every single day here live on the Noun Square. In addition to that, we also have a suite of really cool spaces that we host on behalf of other sub communities within Nouns, sub DAOs, CC0 communities that are sort of adjacent to Nouns. Here are some of the spaces that are coming up in the next day and a half. Tonight, in just 2 hours, we've got NounsDAO Amigos in Espanol, a Spanish language space about everything that's going on in the Latin American Nouns community. Those guys rock. They just kicked off another prop house round as well, so I'm sure that if you speak Spanish and you're interested in that stuff, definitely go through and join them at 7 p.m. If you don't speak Spanish, I can't think of a better way to brush up on your Spanish than going to hang out with the amigos here on TNS at 7 p.m. At 8 p.m., we've got our weekly instance of Food Noun O'Clock. I'm not sure who's hosting this, if it's Sheffo or Aptoshi. They'll probably have lots of interesting news after a week at Nouncella. Out in California. So that should be a good one at 8 p.m. EST tonight, right after NounsDAO Amigos. At 10:30 p.m., we've got the Daily Drop with That's Gnarly. That's Gnarly is a project that is run by the NounsDAO. NounsDAO is a sub-DAO of Nouns. It's a fork that concentrates all on extreme athletes, and they've got a really cool sort of Top Shot-esque platform called That's Gnarly, where extreme athletes can mint their tricks as NFTs and have them auctioned off on a daily basis. So they get together on TNS every single night at 10:30 p.m. EST to check and see what the new That's Gnarly drop of the day is. So join them at 10:30 p.m. tonight if that's your jam. Tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. EST, you got the morning off tomorrow. You can have a coffee, you can have breakfast, enjoy it with your family, or go to work if you have a 9 to 5. It'd be a good idea to get some work in before 9 o'clock live. At 3:45 p.m. EST, we've got JD Agogo joining us here on 9 o'clock live to talk about his proposal for Warped World X Noun. So that's going to be a good one. Looking forward to that tomorrow. It'll probably be a little later than 3:45 actually. Wasn't it like 3:45 today?
It was like 3:35 today, and we minted pretty quick. So 3:45 sounds about right.
Okay, there you go.
Actually, no, it'd be earlier than that because the auction ends at 3:40. So actually, probably about the same time. About 3:35 is when we'll start.
Ash is laughing at us here, and yes, we are crazy. We do run a daily show here that we don't even know the time of the following day. So it makes for a very interesting.
We don't find out what time we're going to be hosting this show until we finish playing FOMO.
Yeah, we're basically like, we'll see you when you see you. That's kind of our scheduling mantra. But generally speaking, we know roughly when it's going to be. Tomorrow is going to be just around 3:45 p.m. EST. At 5:30 p.m. EST tomorrow, we've got Brand Buzz with our resident TikToker, Nikki, and her colleague, Justin. They do a really great job of talking about all the interesting news in branding and social media and all of those types of things. So if that's up your alley, you can join her tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. EST. And then finally, NARS Jam Session, which is their weekly space for NounsDAO, where they talk about literally everything going on in their DAO, is tomorrow at 9 p.m. That's the next 24 hours and then some on TNS. Anything I missed or anything we need to share, RFG? Yeah,
we do have the POAP giveaway.
Yes, we should give a POAP, but nothing else on the schedule, though, right? That's
nothing else on the schedule. No, I think you covered everything.
All right, so let's give the people what they want, which is a free POAP. And as we mentioned yesterday, we are putting the wheels in motion here to have an alternate way to claim the POAP. So keep your ears peeled, but rumor has it that you will soon be able to easily collect the POAP if you've minted the daily Nomo for free. So
we are working with the POAP team to see if we can streamline getting that set up. But yes, it's
in the meantime, though, you can get it for free using the claim code that is going to be given to you in a minute here by RFG. The one caveat is that you're going to have to play this crazy game on your phone to prove that you are not a robot, and it can be a bit much sometimes. So best of luck to you. Take it away, RFG.
So for anybody who isn't aware, POAP, Proof of Attendance Protocol, free NFT, we give it away every single day. All you have to do is download the application on your phone by going to poap.xyz, that is POAP.xyz. Once you have that app downloaded and your wallet synced up and all of that, you're going to tap the mint button in the bottom right-hand corner. Then you are going to tap secret word. And today's secret word is Kanto nouns. Kanto nouns. I'll spell that for you. That is KANTONOUNS. Kanto is in Kanto Labs. Nouns. So I'll spell that for you one more time. That is KANTONOUNS.
I feel like you said it to this just to show how terrible we are as interviewers, because I don't even think we asked Ash what Kanto Labs was. So
Listen,
thanks for
I wanted
highlighting that.
to the entire time, but the conversation was going so well that I just gave up. But check out Kanto Labs if you haven't already. It's really sick.
In 2 minutes or less, Ash, what is Kanto Labs? Since everybody with a POAP now is wondering.
I don't know why I can't hear that account, so I didn't hear like a lot of what that.
Okay, she was giving the POAP. So, can you give me the POAP again, RFG, and I'll give it.
Kanto Nouns, KANTONOUNS.
So she gave the secret code for the POAP, and it's Kanto Nouns. So it's KANTONOUNS. So if anyone else is like Ash and can't hear the main account for some reason, which is annoying, thanks Twitter, that is the POAP. And then I was just mentioning that I think she did that on purpose to needle me about never having asked you about what Kanto Labs was the entire time that we interviewed you. So if you have a minute and you can tell us about Kanto Labs before we close, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, it's Kanto Labs is just it's my community that I've built. It's just a mix between traders, creators, like all that kind of thing. Like I as I mentioned earlier, like I was big on making content, streamed on Twitch for a while, and so I had like a strong community of people that like they would always subscribe, and so Kanto's just like a monthly subscription based thing. I've been running it, love it, people in it, like it's an awesome community, and it definitely helps support me as a creator as well. And then as per usual, like we do get like whitelist and that kind of stuff for projects, and I just try to like help out as much as I can, but still kicking. Community's great even through this downturn, and it's just something that like I have a lot of love for. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Everybody who's listening in, give Ash a follow. Give us all a follow up here if you want to keep in touch with us and what we're doing here with Nouns. Make sure you definitely follow the clock up here, Robot Fish Girl on the clock, so you can keep abreast of all the spaces that we're doing on the daily, as well as all the contests that we run and everything else that's coming out of this clock, which, as you'll see, is verified gold check NBD. Got to flex that gold square. Square PFP rather. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. This has been another Now O'Clock live at Noun Square, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everybody. Tell Ash, because he can't hear me, that I'm playing a piano cover of the Peter City theme just for him, even though he can't hear it.
I'm curious if anyone else can hear TNS. Symbio, can you?
Yeah, I can hear the main account.
Okay, so it's just Ash. All right, sorry about that, Ash. I guess you don't get
Tell
music.
him I'm playing Pokemon piano covers.
Our exit music for the day, Ash, is Pokemon.
Only on Twitter Spaces do we need interpreters for rugged participants. My wife has been watching The Ghost Whisperer, and I feel like that's what that Twitter Spaces has become. I'm standing in the room with RFG, but nobody can hear her.
It's my worst nightmare, honestly.
Adios, everybody. Have a great one. See you next time.
We'll see you all next time. Hopefully people can hear me. We'll see you all soon.